Today's story is about Kiryu Nozomi, who was forced to reapply to medical school for 9 years by her mother, which ultimately led to a tragic act of revenge. Kiryu was born in Shiga Prefecture, Japan. Her father worked as an engineer, and he often worked overtime, so he spent in very little time with his daughter. When Kiryu started elementary school, he had to live in a company dormitory, which caused her to live far away from her family. From then on, only Kiryu and her mother, Shinobu Nozomi, lived together. Kiryu was introverted and quiet, and she was a normal childhood like any other child. She enjoyed with her friends in school and dreamed of finding a job she wanted after graduating from university. However, her mother had different thoughts. The expectations on Kiryu were immense. Shinobu believed that her daughter must enter medical school no matter what, so she brainwashed her daughter, insisting that she should become a doctor several times a day, since before she entered elementary school. She had her own reasons for doing so. Her mother got remarried, and her new stepfather is a doctor. Seeing her stepfather as a respected figure in society, Shinobu had idolized the profession of a doctor since she was a child. She started pressuring her daughter to fulfill the dream that she could not achieve. She activated her own plan to make her daughter go to medical school. Perhaps due to Shinobu influence, Kiryu naturally started dreaming of becoming a doctor from a young age. According to Shinobu's plan, Kiryu diligently studied with the goal of becoming a surgeon. However, her daughter's grades began to decline starting from middle school and didn't seem to improve no matter what she did. When it came time for the university entrance exam, Kiryu's grades were far from sufficient to enter medical school. Kiryu wanted to give up on going to medical school, but her mother insisted that she must become a doctor no matter what and was determined to pursue it. Shinobu continued to pressure her daughter to prepare for medical school entrance exams, but Kiryu knew it was impossible. In 2005, applied to a local national university's medical school, as her mother's demand. As expected, Kiryu failed her first attempt at the medical school entrance exam. However, Shinobu did something unexpected. She started lying to people around her, claiming that her daughter had been accepted into medical school. At the same time, she continued to pressure her daughter to prepare for medical school entrance exams. Kiryu became increasingly exhausted. Tired of her mother's pressure, Kiryu wanted to be free from her mother. She asked her mother if she could study and work part-time. But her mother never allowed it, and her mother insisted that she should challenge medical school again, so she doesn't have time to work part-time. In Japan, minors need their parents' consent to work part-time. Since Kiryu didn't receive her mother's approval, she had no choice but to follow her mother's will and repeat a year of studying. After that, Shinobu's interference and control over her daughter intensified day by day. She didn't allow any time outside of studying and even confiscated Kiryu's cell phone, preventing her from contacting friends. Not only did Shinobu confiscate her phone, but she even monitored her daughter's every move, including taking bath together. Kiryu had no time of herself and could never do anything other than studying under her mother's supervision. She had no personal time at all. She couldn't endure it anymore, so she left home 3 times. However, Shinobu either reported it to the police or hired a private detective, using various methods to bring Kiryu back home. Shinobu's determination to send her daughter to medical school became more and more obsessive as time went on. Kiryu studied under her mother's supervision, but she kept failing the medical school entrance exams for 9 years. For 9 long years, she spent all her time studying at home to fulfill mother's illusionary dream of getting into medical school. In 2014, Kiryu promised her mother that she would become a midwife and entered a nursing program at a local medical school. Finally, after 9 years of preparatory studies, Kiryu's real university life began. In her second year of college, she failed the midwife certification exam. The more she studied, the more she realized that being a surgical nurse suited her better than being a midwife. Kiryu gathered the courage to tell her mother that she wanted to become a surgical nurse. However, Her mother became furious and insisted that she quickly get the midwife certification and give up on her aspirations to become a surgical nurse. The conflict between the two started again. Why did Shinobu force her daughter to become a doctor? She was actually a good student during her school years. But due to a sudden decline in the family's financial situation, she had to give up on going to college. Perhaps because of that, she had a complex about her lack of education. Moreover, when she saw a friend who was less academically successful than her become a nurse, she disregarded the profession of being a nurse. That's why she wanted her daughter to become a midwife rather than a nurse, and she considered a midwife to something that somewhat resembled a doctor. In the summer of 2017, when Kiryu was in her 4th year of college, she started her nursing internship at an affiliated university hospital. Kiryu was excited about her internship and told her mother, but her mother's response was very cold. Shinobu contacted the school and had Kiryu's name removed from the internship list, preventing Kiryu from doing her clinical training. Shinobu pressured her daughter to focus on preparing for the midwife certification exam. Shinobu told Kiryu that she couldn't become a nurse even if she failed the midwife exam. Shinobu confiscated Kiryu's phone again. Kiryu secretly bought another phone, but she was caught by her mother. Her mother was extremely angry when her mother found out that Kiryu had deceived her mother, and Shinobu smashed the phone in front of Kiryu. Kiryu, who had been subjected to excessive interference and verbal abuse for a long time, finally wanted to escape from her mother. But it seemed impossible to escape from her mother who had become a source of terror. Her mental state continued to deteriorate. Since childhood, her mother had continued to oppress her, gradually making her shrink. According to the neighbors, Kiryu was a quiet and well-behaved child. Due to her introverted nature, she believed there was no one around her with whom she could comfortably discuss her situation. With the increasing stress and conflict with her mother, her mental state deteriorated further. One day, Kiryu made a big decision. She approached her mother. She poured her heart out to her mother, expressing her sincere desire to become a nurse and sought her mother's permission. However, her mother became extremely angry and firmly refused. Shinobu told her daughter that her life had been ruined because of her daughter, and she hurled insults at her daughter. The verbal abuse continued for hours, and it only strengthened Kiryu's determination. Kiryu believed that she would get rid of this beast and finally she find freedom. On the night of January 19, 2018, Kiryu approached her mother before going to bed and said, "I'm sorry for causing you worry. Let me give you a massage before you sleep. Please lie down here." A little while later, when Shinobu fell asleep, Kiryu took out a weapon. She stabbed her mother. Then she sat next to her mother and finally managed to block the monster. Now, feeling relieved, she posted a message on her own social media. After that, Kiryu watched her favorite drama and then mutilated her mother's body. She disposed of her mother's body in a river 250 meters away from her home. 2 months later, in March 2018, a man walking along the river bank discovered something strange. Thinking it was an animal's bone, he immediately reported it to the police. As soon as police arrived at the scene, the police realized it was a human bone and immediately sealed off the area while requesting DNA testing. The DNA test results revealed the victim is Kiryu's mother, Shinobu. The police began their investigation focusing on the area surrounding the victim. Kiryu's arrest came about when the police grew suspicious of her. Her neighbor mentioned that they haven't seen her mother for a while, and she didn't report her mother's disappearance to the police. In June 2018, the police arrested Kiryu on charges of corpse disposal. At the time of her arrest, she claims that she didn't do anything. But the most crucial fact is that on the day of the incident, the victim was with her daughter, Kiryu. The police was convinced that Kiryu was the perpetrator. In September 2018, she was arrested on charges of murder. In 2019, the trial was held at the Osaka High Court. The court determined that Kiryu had been subjected to severe interference, even after becoming an adult, and that there is room for sympathy in understanding the motives and circumstances of the crime. In this terrible incident, the abnormal relationship between the mother and daughter was revealed during the trial, surprising people. Finally, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Neither the defendant and the prosecution did not appeal, and the sentence is finalized. During the trial, Kyu stated that she had no way to escape from her mother. She expressed that being in prison would be more comfortable than enduring her mother's oppression and surveillance. Regarding this case, educational experts believe that parents' actions, for the sake of their children's future, can be seen as projecting their own desires onto their children, and it is difficult for individuals themselves to realize this, and even more challenging for outsiders to intervene.